My boyfriend emptied our joint savings account, every penny of the $50,000 we saved for a house, to secretly invest in his ex-girlfriend's company. He thinks I'm at my mother's house falling apart. He has no idea I just spent the day with his ex, becoming her newest business partner. This is where the story truly begins, and you won't want to miss what happens. Make sure you're subscribed to see it through to the end. We're always curious. Where in the world are you all watching from today? Let us know in the comments. The silence of the apartment was the first thing that felt wrong. Not an empty, peaceful silence, but a heavy, waiting one. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I had come home early from work, a rare treat I'd awarded myself after successfully launching a major project phase ahead of schedule. I was buzzing with a quiet, satisfied energy, already mentally drafting the text to my boyfriend, Mark, suggesting we celebrate with our favorite takeout and a movie. We were so close to our goal, so close to everything we'd planned. Our plan, capitalized and underlined in my mind for the last 4 years, was the house. It was our shared dream, the tangible symbol of our future. A small colonial with a wraparound porch, a yard for a dog we'd name Gus, and a crooked apple tree in the back. Every extra dollar, every bonus, every decision to cook at home instead of eating out was a brick in the foundation of that dream. We had a dedicated joint savings account, a digital piggy bank that we watched grow with a fierce, shared pride. Last week, it had tipped over the $50,000 mark, the magic number we'd set for our down payment. Humming to myself, I pulled my laptop from my bag, intending to do a little preliminary house hunting before Mark got home. We were officially in the market now. I navigated to our bank's website, my fingers tapping the keys with giddy anticipation. The page loaded. I clicked on our joint savings account, the one labeled Future Homeowners. My smile froze, then slowly dissolved. The balance read, $17.42. I blinked, certain it was a glitch. I refreshed the page. The number remained, stark and mocking, $17.42. I refreshed again and again. The humming in my ears was no longer a happy tune but the high-pitched whine of panic. My breath hitched. This had to be a mistake. A system error. A transfer to a different account that I'd forgotten about. My mind scrambled for a logical explanation, for anything other than the cold dread coiling in my stomach. I clicked on the transaction history. There was only one recent entry, dated 3 days ago. A single, massive withdrawal, a wire transfer for exactly $50,000. My eyes scanned the recipient details, my blood turning to ice. The transfer was made to something called Innovate Horizons LLC. Innovate Horizons. The name meant nothing and everything all at once. It wasn't a bank. It wasn't a person. It was a sterile corporate name that had just swallowed our entire future. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic bird trapped in a cage. I felt a wave of dizziness, and I gripped the edge of the dining table to steady myself. The wood felt solid, real, unlike the numbers on the screen. My first thought was fraud. We'd been hacked. Someone had stolen our identity, our dream. I snatched my phone, my thumb trembling as I dialed Mark's number. He was my partner, my rock. We would fix this together. He would know what to do. He answered on the third ring, his voice casual and light. "Hey, Chris, everything okay? You're home early." "Mark," I said, my own voice a reedy whisper I barely recognized. "The money, it's gone." There was a beat of silence on the other end. It wasn't a confused silence. It was a weighted pause, the kind that precedes a carefully constructed lie. "What money? What are you talking about?" he asked, but the easygoing tone was gone, replaced by a strained note of caution. "The house money, Mark, the savings account, it's empty. Someone took it. We need to call the bank, the police." Whoa, calm down," he said, his voice dropping into that soothing, placating tone he used when he thought I was being hysterical. "Nobody took it. I moved it." Relief washed over me, so potent it left me weak. "You moved it? Why didn't you tell me? Where did you move it?" I sank into a chair, letting out a shaky laugh. Of course, there was a simple explanation. "I moved it somewhere better," he said, and the confidence was back in his voice, laced with something else, pride. A high-yield investment account I heard about. The returns are incredible. I was going to surprise you when the first statement came in. Our 50 grand is going to be 60 before we even know it. The story was plausible. It was exactly the kind of thing Mark would do, a grand, impulsive gesture meant to be a heroic surprise. But something felt off. The name on the transfer wasn't a bank. Innovate Horizons LLC. It sounded like a business, not an investment foo. ND. As a project manager, my brain was wired to see inconsistencies, to pull at loose threads until the entire tapestry unraveled. What's the name of the fund, Mark? I asked, keeping my voice level. Another slight hesitation. It's a private equity thing, very exclusive. It's called Innovate Horizons. My blood ran cold again. The thread was snagged. I stood up and walked back to the laptop, my movements stiff. Innovate Horizons LLC? I asked, reading the name from the screen. Yeah, that's the one, he said, a little too enthusiastically. Smart, right? We're not just saving anymore, Chris. We're investing. We're building real wealth. I typed the name into a search engine. The results loaded instantly. The top hit wasn't a bank or an investment firm. It was a press release for a new tech startup. My eyes scanned the article, my world shrinking with every word. Innovate Horizons LLC, a new company specializing in sustainable packaging solutions, had just secured its first round of seed funding. And there, at the bottom of the article, was a small section detailing the company's leadership. Founder and CEO, Eleanor Vance. Eleanor, Mark's ex-girlfriend. The one he always claimed was the one that got away, usually after a couple of beers when he thought it was charmingly honest. The air left my lungs in a silent rush. The room tilted, the edges of my vision blurring. It wasn't a hack. It wasn't a surprise investment. It was a choice. He had taken our shared future, the one I had sacrificed and planned for, and he had handed it to his past. The betrayal was so profound, so absolute, it felt less like a heartbreak and more like a physical amputation. The house, the dog, the apple tree, they weren't just delayed. They had been erased. The betrayal was worse than any theft could ever be. The hours after the discovery passed in a surreal, muffled blur. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I felt a strange and terrifying calm settle over me, a layer of ice forming over a turbulent sea. My emotions were too big, too catastrophic to be processed. Instead, my project manager brain took over, compartmentalizing the disaster into manageable tasks. Task 1, gather information. Task 2, assess the damage. Task 3, formulate a response. I stayed on the phone with Mark, my voice eerily steady. I didn't confront him with what I'd found. Not yet. The element of surprise was the only asset I had left. I played the part of the slightly flustered but reassured girlfriend. Oh, okay, I said, forcing a note of relief into my voice. Wow, Mark, that's a big move. You should have told me. I know, he said, his relief palpable through the phone. He thought he'd gotten away with it. I wanted it to be a massive win for us. Think about it, Christine. People like us, we don't just put money in a savings account. We make it work for us. Eleanor, the people running this thing are brilliant. It's a sure thing. The slip was almost imperceptible, but to my hyper-attuned ears, it was a clanging alarm bell. He had caught himself, but not before confirming everything. He wasn't just an investor, he was doing this for her. Right, I said, the word like a chip of glass in my mouth. Well, next time, just give your partner a heads up before you empty our entire life savings, okay? My heart nearly stopped. I will, I promise. I'm sorry I scared you, he said, the apology cheap and easy. Hey, I'm stuck in traffic, but I'll be home in an hour or so. We'll celebrate our new venture. Actually, I said, my mind racing, I think I just need a minute, the shock of it all. I think I'm going to go stay at my mom's for the night, just to clear my head. It was the perfect excuse. He would see it as a predictable emotional reaction, nothing more. It would buy me time. Oh, okay, he said, a hint of disappointment in his voice. He'd probably envisioned a hero's welcome. Are you sure? I can explain the whole portfolio when I get home. I'm sure, I said firmly. I'll talk to you tomorrow. I hung up before he could argue. The silence returned, but now it felt different. It was the silence of a battlefield before the first shot is fired. I stood motionless in the middle of the living room, our shared space now feeling like a foreign territory. Every photo of us on the mantelpiece seemed to mock me. Every piece of furniture we'd picked out together felt like a prop in a play whose script had been secretly rewritten. My gaze fell on a framed photo on the end table. It was from our trip to the coast 2 years ago. We were smiling, windswept and happy, with the ocean behind us. I had thought that was the beginning of our forever. Now I saw it for what it was, a snapshot of a lie. He had been smiling at me, but perhaps he was already thinking of her. A cold fury began to thaw the ice inside me. It started in my gut, a slow, burning heat that spread through my veins. He hadn't just stolen money. He had stolen my trust, my past, and the future I thought I was building. He had made me a fool. He had gambled with my life, with my devotion, and for what? To play the hero for a woman he'd never gotten over. As I stared at the photo, a single, critical thought cut through the anger. Mark was impulsive and arrogant, but he wasn't stupid. He was, however, deeply insecure. He always needed to be the smartest guy in the room, the one with the brilliant idea. And he believed with every fiber of his being that this investment was his masterstroke. He was so blinded by his own perceived genius and his lingering feelings for Alina that he couldn't see the gaping holes in his plan. He thought he had all the power. He thought the money was his to control. He thought my only recourse was to get emotional and run to my mother. But they had forgotten one crucial thing. He may have signed the check, but my name was on that account too. My salary had contributed to more than half of that $50,000. My discipline, my sacrifices, my meticulous planning were all embedded in that stolen sum. That wasn't just his investment to make. Legally and morally, it was mine. And he, in his haste to impress his ex, had overlooked the most important detail of all, me. He had underestimated me. And that was going to be the biggest mistake of his life. The foundation of our relationship, I realized with sickening clarity, was built on a series of my own concessions. I was the planner, the saver, the responsible one. Mark was the dreamer, the big ideas guy. It was a dynamic that seemed to work. I grounded him, he encouraged me to be more spontaneous. I handled the budgets and the 5-year plans, he planned surprise weekend trips and bought concert tickets on a whim. I saw it as balance. Now, I saw it as a long-term pattern of me providing the safety net, while he took all the daring leaps. Our house fund was the ultimate example. I was the one who set up the automatic transfers every payday. I was the one who picked up extra freelance projects, funneling every dollar into that account. I gave up vacations, new clothes, and countless weeknight dinners out. I did it gladly, because it was for us. It was for the dream we were supposed to be building together. Mark's contributions were less consistent. He'd talk a big game about landing a huge commission or a massive bonus that would get us to our goal overnight, but it rarely materialized. His income as a marketing coordinator was steady but not spectacular, and he had a habit of spending on networking opportunities. Expensive dinners, rounds of drinks, the latest tech gadgets that he swore were investments in his career. I had supported him, believing in his ambition. Now I wondered if that ambition was ever for us, or if it was always about proving something to someone else. That someone was Alina. I had never met her, but I knew her like a ghost that haunted our apartment. Her name would surface in casual conversation, a specter of perfection Mark couldn't help but invoke. Alina used to say that the best ideas come after midnight, he'd comment while I was yawning over my laptop. You know, Alina founded her first company with nothing but a credit card and a dream, he'd say when I expressed anxiety about our finances. In my mind, she was this mythical figure, brilliant, beautiful, and effortlessly successful. According to Mark, their breakup years ago was mutual, a casualty of different life paths. He was ready to settle down, and she was destined for greatness that couldn't be tied down. It was a narrative that painted him as the noble, heartbroken martyr and her as an untouchable force of nature. He kept a single, tasteful photo of them with a group of friends on his digital photo frame. A subtle but constant reminder of the life he once had. I never felt threatened, not really. I felt I was the reality to his nostalgia. I was the one he came home to. I was the one building a tangible future with him. I had pity for this ghost of a woman, forever trapped in Mark's past. But now, the ghost had a name, Innovate Horizons LLC, and a very real, very significant portion of my life savings. The antagonist in this story wasn't just Mark. It was his deep, unresolved insecurity personified by a leaner. He hadn't just invested in a company, he had bought a ticket back into her orbit. He was trying to rewrite history to show the one that got away that he was now a man of substance, a player, a visionary just like her. He wasn't just funding her dream, he was trying to become a part of it. I recalled a conversation from a few months ago. Mark had come home buzzing with excitement. "I ran into a leaner today," he'd said, trying to sound casual. "She's back in town, starting something new, something big." He described her with a reverence that should have been a red flag. He didn't focus on her as a person, but on her aura of success. The way she commanded a room, the sharpness of her suit, the confidence in her handshake. He had shown me her professional headshot on a business website. She was striking, with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense expression. She looked polished, formidable, and completely out of his league. And yet, there was a disingenuous gleam in his eye when he talked about her. It was the look of a man trying to convince himself of something. His interest wasn't just in her success, it was in what her success represented. It was a world of wealth, power, and prestige that he desperately wanted to belong to. By investing our money, he wasn't just supporting her, he was buying a piece of that world for himself. He was using my hard work as his entry fee. The more I thought about it, the more the pieces clicked into place. The vague comments about smart money, the sudden interest in venture capital podcasts, the way he dismissed my meticulous savings plan as playing it small. He wasn't just being impulsive, he was being manipulative. He had been laying the groundwork for this for months, slowly devaluing my contributions while building up his grand, secret plan. He had gaslit me into thinking my caution was fear, while his recklessness was courage. The primary antagonist wasn't a leaner. She was likely just a successful business owner who accepted a promising investment. For all I knew, she was completely unaware of the source of the funds. The true villain was the man sleeping next to me for 4 years, the man who smiled in my face while planning the single greatest betrayal of my life. He had weaponized his past to destroy our future. And now, I was going to use his own weapon against him. The night at my mom's house was a necessary fiction. I didn't go there. Instead, I drove to a quiet, anonymous hotel 20 minutes away, paid in cash, and locked myself in the room. The sterile, impersonal space was exactly what I needed. It was a blank canvas, free of memories and attachments. It was my war room. For the first hour, I allowed myself to feel everything. The grief, the rage, the crushing weight of humiliation. I let the tears come, hot and silent. It was a controlled burn, a necessary purging of the victimhood I felt. When it was over, I splashed cold water on my face, looked at my puffy eyes in the mirror, and saw not a heartbroken woman, but a project manager with a critical problem to solve. The turning point wasn't a single moment, but a quiet, crystallizing decision. I would not be a victim in this story. I would not beg for my money back. I would not engage in screaming matches or tearful recriminations. Mark had played a game of chess with my life, and he thought he had me in checkmate. He was about to find out I was playing a different game entirely. My laptop was open on the cheap hotel desk. My objective was clear. Learn everything there was to know about Innovate Horizons LLC and Alina Vance. My professional skills, once used to manage timelines and budgets for a software company, were now repurposed for a forensic investigation into my own life. I started with the company. Innovate Horizons was more than just a press release. It was a fully registered limited liability company. I found the public filings. The registration documents listed one managing member, Alina Vance. Mark's name was nowhere. This was good. He hadn't been smart enough to secure any legal stake for himself. He had likely just wired the money with a handshake agreement or a simple investment receipt, counting on his personal connection to Aliner. The company itself was impressive. Aliner had developed a biodegradable polymer derived from agricultural waste, a true green alternative to single-use plastics. The market potential was enormous. News articles, industry blogs, and tech forums were all buzzing about it. She had patents pending, a small-scale production facility lined up, and a clear, brilliant business plan. My stomach churned with a strange mix of sickness and admiration. Mark hadn't invested in a pipe dream. He had stumbled into a potential gold mine, our gold mine. Next, I focused on Aliner. Her digital footprint was that of a consummate professional. A polished LinkedIn profile detailed a stellar career, an MBA from a top-tier university, a successful exit from her first startup, and a series of consulting gigs with major corporations. She was a panelist at tech conferences, a mentor for women in STEM, and had been featured in several business journals. There was nothing to suggest she was anything but a legitimate and very smart entrepreneur. She didn't seem like the kind of woman who would knowingly get involved in a shady, personal drama. She seemed like someone who valued integrity. This was my clever trap, my key piece of leverage. The trap wasn't for Aliner, it was for Mark. My power lay in the truth. My plan began to form, sharp and clear. Demanding the money back would be messy. Aliner might not have the liquid cash to return it immediately, and a legal fight could drag on for months, potentially harming the company's launch. And even if I got the money back, it would feel like a hollow victory. The trust was already gone. The relationship was over. I didn't want my money back. I wanted justice. I wanted what I was owed. My $50,000 wasn't just cash. It was seed capital. It was an investment. Mark thought he had made the investment, but he had used my money, my labor. I had every right to claim it as my own. I needed to get in a room with Aliner Vance. Finding her contact information was the next step. Her company website had a generic info at email address, but I needed to go directly to the source. I leveraged my LinkedIn account, searching for connections who might know her. Within 30 minutes, I found a second-degree connection, a former colleague who had attended the same university as Aliner. I crafted a careful, professional message. Hi, colleague's name, hope you're well. I'm reaching out on a bit of a long shot. I see you're connected with Aliner Vance. I'm a project manager with a deep interest in the sustainable tech space, and her new venture, Innovate Horizons, is incredibly impressive. I have a business proposal I'd like to discuss with her directly. Would you be comfortable making an introduction or sharing a professional contact email? It was a risk, but it was calculated. Within an hour, my colleague replied, "Happy to help, Christine. Aliner is brilliant. Here's her direct work email. Tell her I said hello." My heart leaped. I had a direct line. Now for the most important step, the message to Aliner. It had to be professional, intriguing, and urgent without revealing the entire drama. After 20 drafts, I settled on the final version. Subject: urgent matter regarding a recent investment. Dear Ms. Vance, my name is Christine Riley. I am a project manager and a financial contributor to the recent $50,000 seed investment made in Innovate Horizons under the name of Mark Peterson. I have reason to believe this investment was made under false pretenses, and I need to speak with you urgently to rectify the situation before it becomes a legal complication for both your company and for me. I am available to meet at your earliest convenience to discuss this sensitive matter in person. Sincerely, Christine Riley. I attached a redacted copy of our joint bank statement showing my name and the massive withdrawal. It was irrefutable proof that I was tied to the funds. I hit send. The trap was set. Now all I could do was wait. The response came faster than I could have imagined. Less than an hour after I sent my email, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was from Aliner Vance. Subject: Ray. Urgent matter regarding a recent investment. Christine. I've just seen your email. I'm available to meet tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at my office. Please confirm if this works for you. Eliner. Her reply was brief, direct, and all business. There was no questioning, no defensiveness, just an immediate call to action. It confirmed my initial assessment of her. She was a serious professional who did not tolerate complications. My heart hammered with a mixture of terror and vindication. This was it. The next morning, I dressed with meticulous care. I chose a simple, dark blue sheath dress, low heels, and pulled my hair back into a sleek, professional bun. My appearance had to project confidence and composure. I was not here as a scorned woman, I was here as a stakeholder. As I drove to the address she'd provided, a modern, co-working space in the city's tech district, I rehearsed my opening lines. I would be calm, factual, and direct. The Innovate Horizons office was a small but bright space, filled with whiteboards covered in chemical formulas, 3D printed prototypes, and the energetic hum of a company on the verge of launching. Eliner met me at the door herself. In person, she was even more striking than her photos suggested. She was tall and poised, with an air of sharp intelligence that was almost intimidating. She wore a tailored blazer over a simple blouse, and her handshake was firm. "Christine," she said, her expression unreadable. "Thank you for coming in. Please have a seat." She led me to a small conference room with a glass wall overlooking the main office. She closed the door, and we sat opposite each other at a simple white table. There was no small talk. She got straight to the point. "Your email was concerning," she said, her gaze steady and direct. "You said the investment from Mark was made under false pretenses. Please explain." I took a deep breath, grounding myself. "Eliner, may I call you Eliner?" She nodded. "Thank you. First, let me be clear. I think what you are building here is brilliant. My issue is not with your company. It's with the source of the capital you received from Mark Peterson." I slid a folder across the table. It contained the full, unredacted bank statement for our joint savings account, showing both our names clearly at the top. It also included a printout of my pay stubs for the last 2 years, with highlighted lines showing the direct deposits that corresponded with the savings transfers. "For the last 4 years, Mark and I have been saving for a down payment on a house," I began, my voice even and controlled. "That $50,000 was our entire life savings. Over half of it was contributed directly from my salary. It was a joint fund for a joint future. 3 days ago, Mark transferred the entire sum to your company without my knowledge or consent." I watched her face carefully as she absorbed my words. Her professional composure didn't slip, but I saw a flicker of something in her eyes, a hardening. She looked down at the bank statement, her finger tracing my name, then the matching deposits from my paycheck. She was silent for a long moment, processing the information. The silence stretched, thick with tension. When she finally looked up, her expression was cold, but the coldness wasn't directed at me. "He told me he had come into an inheritance," she said, her voice clipped with anger. "He said a distant uncle had passed away and left him a small portfolio, and he wanted to invest it in something meaningful. He framed it as wanting to support a friend and make a smart financial move." The lie was so audacious, so perfectly tailored to elicit sympathy and admiration, that I almost laughed. An inheritance. It was so much more flattering than "I stole my girlfriend's half of our house fund." "There was no inheritance, Eliner," I said softly. "There was only me, working extra hours and skipping vacations. There was only a dream of a home that he decided to burn down to impress you." A muscle in her jaw tightened. "The nerve," she whispered, more to herself than to me. "The absolute, utter nerve of that man." She looked me straight in the eye, and for the first time I saw her not as Mark's intimidating ex, but as a fellow woman who had just been lied to. "Christine, I am so sorry. I had no idea. If I had, I never would have accepted the funds. This is unacceptable." Her reaction was everything I had hoped for and more. She wasn't defensive. She didn't make excuses for him. She was furious on my behalf. "I believe you," I said, and I truly did. "Which is why I'm here. I don't want to damage your company. I've done my research and I believe in your product. Demanding the money back would cause a liquidity crisis for you and a legal nightmare for me. I have a different proposal." She leaned forward, her eyes sharp and focused. The anger was now channeled into shrewd curiosity. "I'm listening," she said. This was the moment, the pivot from victim to visionary. "The investment was made with my money," I stated, my voice ringing with newfound confidence. "Therefore, I believe the equity it purchased should belong to me. Mark's name should be nowhere near this company. I want to convert his investment into a formal, personal equity stake in my name. Furthermore, I'm a project manager with 10 years of experience in product launches and operational logistics. I know how to get a product from concept to market efficiently. I want to offer my professional skills to help you succeed. I'm not asking for a salary. I'm asking for a seat at the table. Let me help you build this company. My investment wasn't just money, it was my future. I want to reinvest it here with you." Elena stared at me, her expression a mixture of shock and profound respect. The air in the room shifted. It was no longer a confrontation. It was a negotiation. She saw what I was offering: a clean solution to a messy problem, an infusion of skilled labor, and an ally who was just as invested in the company's success as she was. She broke into a slow, wry smile. "Mark Peterson is an idiot," she said, shaking her head in disbelief. "He had a diamond and threw it away to chase a piece of glass. Christine Riley, you are far more interesting than an inheritance. Let's talk specifics. I think you and I are going to get along just fine." The hours that followed were a whirlwind of focused energy. Elena and I didn't just agree in principle, we started building the case right then and there. She called her corporate lawyer, a sharp woman named Alana, and explained the situation in blunt, efficient terms. "Alana, I have a situation," Elena said, pacing her office with her phone to her ear. "The seed funding from Mark Peterson, it's compromised. The funds were misappropriated from a joint account without the other party's consent." She paused, listening. "No, the other party isn't suing. She's sitting in my office, and she's my new business partner. We need to draft an agreement that transfers the entirety of the equity purchased with those funds to her. Her name is Christine Riley. And we need to make sure Mark Peterson is legally severed from any claim to this company, now or eve." While she was on the phone, I forwarded Alana all the documentation I had prepared: the bank statements, the pay stubs, the timeline of events. I was methodically dismantling Mark's grand gesture and rebuilding it into a fortress for myself. The collaboration with Elena was seamless. We worked with a shared, unspoken understanding. We had both been underestimated by the same man, and we were both determined to correct the record. Alana, the lawyer, was impressed by my preparedness. "It's rare for a client to come to me with the case already built," she said over the speakerphone. "Christine, your documentation is ironclad. Proving commingled funds and your direct financial contribution will be straightforward. We can draft a stock transfer agreement. Mark will have to sign it, relinquishing all claims to the shares in exchange for you agreeing not to pursue criminal charges for theft or civil action for the misappropriated funds. Essentially, we're giving him a choice: walk away with nothing or face legal consequences." The strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. We weren't just taking the investment, we were using the threat of his own wrongdoing as the leverage to make him sign it away himself. He would be forced to be an active participant in his own downfall. As Alana worked on the legal documents, Elena and I mapped out my potential role in the company. We bent over a whiteboard, my project management instincts kicking into high gear. I pointed out potential bottlenecks in her production timeline and suggested a phased launch strategy to manage risk. She, in turn, explained the complex science behind her product with a passion that was infectious. We were no longer two women connected by a duplicitous man. We were two professionals building something new. In the midst of our planning, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. My stomach clenched. "Mark, hey, hope you're feeling better. Mom's cooking doing the trick. Starting to miss you." His message was so patronizing, so dripping with condescension, it was almost comical. He truly believed I was licking my wounds at my mother's house, waiting for him to swoop in and make everything better. I showed the text to Alina. She read it and snorted. The clueless audacity, it's almost an art form. He has no idea, I said, a grim smile playing on my lips. Me still processing, need a little more time, talk soon. I had to keep him in the dark for just a little longer. We needed the legal documents to be perfect before the final confrontation. The stakes were escalating. This was no longer just about getting my money back. It was about securing my future and ensuring Mark faced a real consequence for his betrayal. The next day, Alana sent over the draft of the stock transfer agreement. It was a beautiful, terrifying document. In cold, legal language, it laid out the facts. That Mark Peterson had used joint funds, that Christine Riley was the rightful claimant to the assets purchased with those funds, and that by signing, he would transfer 100% of his shares in Innovate Horizons LLC to her, effective immediately. It also included a non-disclosure clause, preventing him from ever discussing the matter publicly. He'll be backed into a corner, Alana explained on our follow-up call. If he refuses to sign, your path is to file a police report for theft and a civil suit. His reputation would be ruined, and he could face serious charges. Given the choice between public humiliation and legal trouble versus quietly walking away, most people choose to walk away. Alina and I met one last time to go over the plan. The documents were printed, ready for his signature. We had a notary on standby. My feigned trip to my mom's was coming to an end. It was time to go home. "Are you ready for this?" Alina asked, her expression serious. I looked at the folder in my hands. Inside was the culmination of the worst and best 48 hours of my life. Inside was my revenge, my justice, and my new beginning, all captured on 3 pages of paper. "He left me with nothing," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "So I have nothing left to lose, and everything to gain." That evening, I sent Mark another text. "Me heading home now, we need to talk." "Mark, great, can't wait to see you. I'll order that pizza you like. We can finally celebrate our investment." The smiley face was the last straw. The profound, unshakable arrogance of the man was about to collide with a reality he couldn't even fathom. The case was built. The trap was laid. All that was left was to watch him walk into it. I walked through the door of our apartment and found Mark standing in the kitchen, a cheerful, oblivious smile on his face. A pizza box sat on the counter, and 2 wine glasses were already set out. The scene was a grotesque parody of the celebratory evening I had imagined for myself just 2 days earlier. "There she is," he said, opening his arms for a hug. I sidestepped him, placing my small suitcase on the floor and the leather-bound folder on the dining table. My movements were calm and deliberate. The icy composure I'd discovered in that hotel room had become a permanent part of me. Mark's smile faltered. He dropped his arms. "Whoa, okay. Still in a mood, I see. Look, Christine, I know it was a shock, but you have to stop being so emotional about this and see the big picture. I did this for us." "Did you?" I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. I didn't recognize it as my own. It was colder, harder. "Did you do it for us, Mark? Or did you do it for Alina?" He flinched, a flicker of panic in his eyes before he masked it with indignation. "What does Alina have to do with this? This is business. I saw a brilliant opportunity and I took it. You should be thanking me. We're going to be rich." "Sit down, Mark," I said. It wasn't a request. He hesitated, then reluctantly pulled out a chair at the dining table, his bravado visibly deflating. He eyed the folder between us with suspicion. "What is this?" "This," I said, sliding the folder towards him, "is the big picture." He opened it. His eyes scanned the first page, the bold title of the stock transfer agreement seeming to jump out at him. I watched as the blood drained from his face. He read through the legalese, his confusion slowly twisting into dawning horror. He saw the company name, Innovate Horizons LLC. He saw his name. He saw my name. He saw the clause transferring 100% of the equity. "What is this?" he whispered, his voice cracking. "Is this a joke?" "Read the second page," I said calmly. He fumbled with the paper. The second page was a copy of our joint bank statement. The third was a copy of my pay stubs. He stared at them, the evidence of my work, my savings, my life, laid out in black and white. The carefully constructed world of his grand gesture crumbled around him in real time. "You went to her," he breathed, looking up at me with wide, betrayed eyes. The irony was so thick I could have choked on it. "I did," I confirmed. "She was horrified to learn that your inheritance was actually the life savings you stole from your girlfriend. She's a woman of integrity, Mark. Something you clearly know nothing about." "You can't do this," he stammered, shaking his head in disbelief. "I made that investment. It was my idea." "You used my money, Mark. More than half of that $50,000 was mine. You committed theft. You can call it an investment all you want, but the law has other words for it. Fraud, embezzlement." He shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "You're trying to blackmail me." "I'm offering you a choice," I countered, my voice never rising. I stood up to face him, feeling a strange sense of power in my stillness. "It's a very simple one. Option A, you sign that document. You transfer the shares that you fraudulently purchased with my money into my name and you walk away. You lose the investment, but you keep your name clear. We go our separate ways, and this ends quietly and cleanly." I paused, letting the silence hang in the air before delivering the final blow. "Or option B," I continued, my voice dropping. "You refuse to sign, and tomorrow morning I walk into a police station with this folder and file a report. And Alina's lawyer, Alana, files a civil suit against you for the full amount plus damages. Your brilliant idea becomes a criminal investigation. Your name will be dragged through the mud. You'll lose your job, you'll have a police record, and you will still lose the money. So, you tell me, Mark, what's the big picture now?" He stared at me, his mouth opening and closing silently, like a fish out of water. The smug, confident man who had patronized me on the phone was gone. In his place was a pale, terrified stranger. He saw the checkmate. He saw that every move he could possibly make would lead to his own ruin. He sank back into his chair, defeated. The fight had gone out of him completely, replaced by a hollow emptiness. He picked up a pen from the table, his hand trembling so badly he could barely hold it. "You planned this," he whispered, looking at the signature line. "While I thought you were at your mom's, crying." "You thought I was emotional," I finished for him, a bitter taste in my mouth. "You were counting on it, that was your mistake." He didn't look at me as he signed the document. His signature was a spidery, hesitant scrawl, the final, pathetic act in his grand, failed performance. He signed all 3 copies. He pushed the folder back towards me without a word. The showdown was over. There was no screaming, no satisfying explosion of rage. There was only the quiet, efficient dismantling of his life's biggest lie, and in that silence I had never felt more powerful. With the signed papers in my possession, the finality of it all settled in the room. There was nothing left to say. Mark sat slumped in his chair, a man hollowed out B. Why the consequences of his own actions? "I'll be out by the end of the week," he mumbled to the table. "You'll be out by tomorrow morning," I corrected him, my voice leaving no room for negotiation. "This apartment is in my name, the lease, the bills, all of it. Just like the savings account, I was the one who handled the reality of our life while you were busy dreaming. Your dream is over. It's time for you to leave." He didn't argue. He simply nodded, a broken man. He packed a single bag that night, filled with clothes and his personal effects, and left to go stay on a friend's couch. The grand investor, the man of vision, was effectively homeless. I later heard through a mutual acquaintance that he had to move back in with his parents, his tail between his legs. His attempt to buy his way into a world of prestige had cost him everything he actually had. The morning after he left, I met with Alina and Alana. I handed over the signed and notarized stock transfer agreement. Alana filed it immediately. It was official. I, Christine Riley, was now a shareholder and strategic partner in Innovate Horizons LLC. The feeling was not one of triumphant glee, but of profound, quiet vindication. I had faced the ultimate betrayal and had not only survived it, but had emerged stronger, wealthier, and with a future I could never have imagined. My professional life transformed. I threw myself into my new role alongside Alina. My project management skills were a perfect complement to her visionary, scientific mind. I streamlined her production plan, negotiated with vendors, and built the operational framework for the company's launch. We worked long, grueling hours, but it was the most fulfilling work of my life. We weren't just colleagues. We became friends, bonded by a shared sense of purpose and a mutual, if unspoken, understanding of the man who had inadvertently brought us together. 6 months later, Innovate Horizons launched its first product to incredible acclaim. We secured a major contract with a national distribution company, and our valuations skyrocketed. The $50,000 investment, my stolen house fund, was now worth 10 times that on paper, and it was all mine. One afternoon, Alina and I were celebrating the new contract on the small balcony of our office, overlooking the city. "You know," she said, swirling the wine in her glass, "I've been thinking, you never did get that house." I smiled. "No, I guess I didn't." The dream of the colonial with the apple tree felt like a lifetime ago, a sweet but naive fantasy belonging to a different woman. "Well," she continued, a sly grin on her face, "our second round of funding just closed, and the board has approved executive bonuses. Yours is substantial, enough for a down payment on any house you want, with plenty left over." Tears welled in my eyes, but they were not tears of sadness or anger. They were tears of gratitude. I had lost a house but gained a career, a friend, and a future I had built with my own 2 hands, forged in the fire of betrayal. I did eventually buy a home. It wasn't a small colonial in the suburbs. It was a sleek, modern condo downtown with a view of the skyline. It didn't have a yard for a dog, but it was mine. I bought it with my own money, signed the papers with my own name, and felt a sense of peace and security that no shared dream could ever have given me. My name was on the deed, on the company registry, on my life. And that was the only name that mattered.